So we're coming up on the year anniversary of the Sunday night tea group gatherings. And if you've been following any of that on Facebook, it might seem like things are going really well and I'm having a great time. And there's a way that that's true, but there's so much more to the story. And I wanted to take a minute to share some of that, some of what I've been working with and what I've been learning. And it's also coming up more and more in sessions with clients who are also creative, service-based entrepreneur types. And all of this started almost by accident. Where it is now isn't really what I had in mind when I first started out. And in truth, the process has had me outside of my comfort zone about 90% of the time, which means that I've been mostly uncomfortable most of the time. And it really represents the most publicly vulnerable risk I think I've ever taken. And I have felt everything from inadequate to terrified to like a total fraud, and have had serious doubt moments, like dark night of the soul doubt moments. And every time maybe not every time, but many times that I've stood in front of a group or shared my writing or something like this, honestly, there's always been the other end of it, of me hiding under my blankets, calling my mom, I'm scared. So I want to talk about what got me through all of that and where I've been coming from as I've been doing it, because it has worked. And so I also just want to share what has worked really well for me. So when Tea Group was still happening, just in my living room and in the living rooms of other generous friends, I was surprised by how often people were just kind of stunned. They would come up to me and they'd say, how can you be doing all of this for free? What's your game? Or how are you doing this? And I was surprised kind of at how much they were moved by what I was doing, because internally for me, it didn't really feel like that much. It didn't feel like nothing, but certainly not enough to I was just surprised by how touched everybody was. And so in the reflection of their response, I got to see part of my inner operating system, which is just a belief in generosity. And, I think if you were going to call the business model I've kind of hacked together, if you were going to call it anything, I would call it radical generosity. That would be as good a name as any. And I heard someone recently quoting Tony Robbins as saying, "Give more than you ever expect to receive." And this feels really true for me. And from that belief, then my job is to go inward and really ask, who am I and what is my role here? And then when I start to get an inkling of what that is, I just start doing it. I take stock of whatever resources and tools are available to me right now, and I just get creative. I just get bootstrappy about it and just start doing stuff. And that's kind of the thing that I remember discovering, feeling most surprised by, is that you really can just do stuff. I think I had it in my head that there needed to be all this preparation and credentials and all of this stuff. And it's no, it just begin and something will take its own momentum. And I also found out that I learn way more by doing than I ever did in all my years of grad school, bar none. I learned more in a week of just doing things than I would in months of academic study. And so there's also a twin belief that goes with the generosity stuff, which is that there's something about the way this universe is constructed that's kind of like a battery. There's a positive and a negative end, like an in and an out, and that it kind of just wants to create a circuit between the two, so that when there's this genuine offering of energy, it almost can't help but send some of it back around. And I don't necessarily get to say when or in what form or how much, but it does. That has been sort of my embedded belief, is that it works that way. And so at some point I was just let's just try this. Let's just see what happens if I let that natural reciprocity circuit take care of itself. And in the meantime, I just completely pour myself into this creativity and into this generosity and just figure out ways to do more and more and just follow that scent, whatever that might be, the thing that I'm interested in. And it worked. It worked in ways I couldn't really have predicted. But now I get to just wake up in the morning and ask, what do I need to do today? And that's so awesome. It's so much fun, and I don't know where it's going to go from here. So anyways, a lot of this clicked into place for me when I was reading Rich Litvin's book, The Prosperous Coach. He said that your bank account, your money, is a reflection of your creativity, your service, and your impact. So if you can figure out a way to do any of those three things better, your bank account will also reflect that. And so what I took from that was that I would just put my creativity and my generosity in the most privileged position on my priorities list. They would be number one in a big way, and everything else would be after that. And then from that place, I would let the money part kind of be my indicator, the sort of signal that something's working. And Byron Katie is another person who's been really helpful to me on this score as well. In fact, like completely fundamentally shifting my relationship with money altogether. From her sort of teaching, what I've gotten is that whatever amount of money I have right now is how much I'm supposed to have right now. So if there's like some retreat or training that I want to go do, that always shows up for me as the things I want to go do. But if I don't have the money for it right now, the assumption I'll make is that it means that I'm not supposed to do that thing at this time. And so what that lets me do is it lets me let go of the resistance to things as they are and instead ask, well, what am I supposed to do right now? And there's a strange way, actually, that when I start to ask that question, the right next move, as like Oprah says, what's the right next move? It makes itself abundantly clear. And in a way, it's almost like the money in my bank account is a signal that lets me know what to do and what not to do. There's this information in it. And so I've let go of telling money what to do in a weird way. It's very liberating. So anyways, what is it that can sustain this kind of radical generosity, especially while you're waiting for that natural reciprocity circuit to kick in? Because sometimes it has a timeline. It's not always instantaneous, and it's not always one for one. In fact, I see like it rarely is. So how do we move forward with this, and how also do we weather the really challenging and inevitable moments that this approach to life and creativity and business will bring you? Absolutely. Because it's a lot of output and it's pretty uncomfortable. So what are we going to do? So I've heard the likes of Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss and those types espouse this idea that you need to just do it. You show up and you do the work kind of no matter how you feel. And there's a part of me that really resonates with that sentiment. But I've always had this not so sure, also some hesitation. And I haven't really been able to articulate that until recently. And so what I've gotten to is that the only thing that can really sustain this radical generosity and get me through the moments where it's unbearable and I want nothing else to do with it, the only thing that gets me through those moments is a quality of devotion. And it's really what's kept me going, in spite of how wickedly uncomfortable and sometimes deeply painful this process has been. And I think it's what us spiritual, creative, service-based entrepreneurs are really after, is this devotion. And so when we have it, my belief is that that's what's really going to let us do the work every day, in spite of how we feel. Because it's like, if this is the bad feeling in here, it's like it sucks in there, and there's no getting around that. But it's happening inside of this larger container, this larger context of devotion, and this has a good feeling that goes with it. So the bad feeling and the good feeling are kind of happening at the same time. And that's what's gotten me through, at least. And I've definitely been at those crucial moments of like about to jump ship, like about to jump off the ledge, like get me out of here. And I've been at that place before in other professional, iterations, and did jump off the ledge. So what's the difference? The difference is this quality of devotion that is present for me now. And so this is the question I keep asking clients over and over again. What can you devote yourself to? And if you don't know, great. What can we do to help you figure it out? What experiments can we run? How can we turn this into your discovery process of what you can truly devote yourself to? Because there's a difference between devotion and passion and also bliss, like in that sense of follow your bliss. Because the way I think about it, passion and bliss are both emotions. They both come and go. And in those crunchy passages, they're the first things that split. No more bliss and no more passion. It just hurts, and I want nothing more than to get out of it. But in those moments, when passion and bliss have hit the road, devotion is still there. So that makes me think that devotion isn't really an emotion. I think it's more like a choice, kinda. The kinda is, I feel like I got chosen by it, but I also totally chose it in return. So in a way, it's almost like a marriage or a giving over of self to something that's larger than me. And that thing that's larger than me will probably ask everything of me. And so that's why I see this whole creativity, generosity, service, entrepreneurial experience as just sort of the most recent iteration of my overall spiritual development process, because the rate of change that's been required has been mind-blowing. It is forcing me to step out of all my little safe places and shed just giant chunks of my identity and then replace it. Build up new identities that just feel frickin' weird for a while. Truly, devotion has been the only raft that's been able to get me through those waters. And so what happens when we do the just do it approach, but we don't have the devotion? Totally a worthy experiment. I'm all for applying yourself to whatever experiment you're running right now. But what I found for myself is that when I got into those really painful, challenging, hard passages or whatever, if I didn't have that quality of devotion, I didn't have enough to get all the way through to the other side. So that's what I got for you. This quality of radical generosity just says, go inside and ask yourself, what is your role here? And ask that question until you feel like you know something. And then when you know something, just start there. There's so much available to just begin running experiments, to learn by doing, which is so much wildly more effective than I ever realized. And then trust that there really is this natural reciprocity circuit, that when we are offering and giving and putting things in motion and adding value, that has to come back. But we don't always get to say when or in what form or how much. That will take care of itself. And the way it comes back is often a reflection of what you're doing. And then lastly, this quality of devotion, I think, is really the North Star, the only real raft that's going to take you all the way through what an unbelievably challenging experience this can be sometimes. So if you don't know what you're devoted to yet, great. How can you begin to dance with that question? Okay, if you have any comments or questions about all the things I just said, please leave me a comment and I'll respond to it as best as I can. And I hope this was helpful. Talk to you later.